What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about some flagships from 2018 that you can still pick up today in 2021 for a really good price right now. Starting off with the OnePlus 6T. So the 6T you can find for as cheap as 200 bucks now on Amazon, and I'll have that link down below. This phone still has pretty good specifications. You do have a premium design on here, glass and metal design. You do have a really nice looking water drop notch display on here at 6.4 inches. It's a 1080p display, 402 for the PPI. Overall, the display was really nice, respectable bezels on here, beautiful colors, and it got fairly bright as well. So this phone got the Android 10 update, which is really nice, along with the Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630. One of my favorite things about OnePlus is just how smooth Oxygen OS is. It's one of my favorite skins on Android, and this phone can actually still play games at high settings with this chipset, so this can be a nice little decent gaming phone. So you do not have any expandable storage, unfortunately, but you do get 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM, and they actually cut the headphone jack on the 6T, so you don't have that either. You just have a single firing speaker as well, which is loud enough. It sounds fine. You do have NFC on board with a pretty fast in-display fingerprint sensor as well. This phone also has pretty good cameras on here, especially at this price point. A dual camera setup, 16 megapixel standard with a 20 megapixel depth sensor, and you do get 4K video as well as a 16 megapixel selfie camera. And as you can see from the shots, pretty good detail, pretty good color accuracy. Color science is pretty good on here as well, so I was really happy with the 6T shots. And again, for 200 bucks, it's gonna do a very good job compared to other budget phones at this price point. Now, battery life is okay on the 6T. It's not crazy good. It's a 3700 milliamp battery with 20-watt fast charging. There is no wireless charging on here, and there is no type of water resistant rating on here. But battery life for me, I was able to squeeze around 6 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time with this phone, which is definitely a day for most people, so not a huge problem. So the 6T is still definitely a great buy at this price point. Next is the LG G7, which you can find for 200 and below actually, and this is still an excellent buy. So you have an aluminum frame, glass back on here, just a really solid design on here. One of my favorite feeling phones of all time in the hand. You do have IP68, dust and water resistant on this phone. A beautiful 6.1 inch 1440p display with a really high PPI 564. It's an IPS HDR10 display, and it looks really good. Just a really nice vibrant IPS display, and just super sharp. Everything looks sharp on the G7's display. It is a really nice looking display here, and you do get Android 10, which is most likely going to be the last update for this phone, but it does run super fast with that update, so I was really impressed when it got it. And it still has a very fast chip. The Snapdragon 845 is still a pretty fast chip. It can pretty much still play any game at high settings. I have a full gaming test if you guys want to check that out, but there's no game that this phone can't really play. You do have micro SD support, 64 gigs of internal storage with 4 gigs of RAM on here. You also get a very loud single firing speaker, one of the best single firing speakers that I've heard, and you also get a 3.5mm jack with a quad DAC. So if you're somebody that's really into audio on their phone, this is an excellent audio phone, especially at this price point. So you do have a physical fingerprint scanner on the back. Face Unlock is on board with this phone as well. The cameras are pretty respectable on here. It's a dual camera setup, 16 megapixel standard, 16 megapixel ultra wide 4K video, 8 megapixel selfie, 1080p video. As you can see from the shots, they look really good as well. I have a video on how to install Gcam as well, so you can get the most out of these cameras. But good detail, pretty good ultra wide. Again, 200 bucks. I'm not complaining. You can see the shots themselves. Now the battery life is where the G6 isn't super impressive. 3000 milliamp battery, 18-watt fast charging, wireless charging as well. You get around 6 hours of screen on time with this phone, and again, that depends on how hard or light you use the phone, but that's usually what I get, which is sufficient for a day, so it's fine. But yeah, so this phone comes feature packed with really everything you would want for, under 200 bucks. It's just a crazy deal right now. Next is the iPhone XS. This is an excellent phone right now. You can legitimately find one for $350. I'll have those links down below. This is such an awesome deal. I really love the iPhone X and XS at these price points. I think they're great phones. So you have a premium design on here, stainless steel glass back on here, IP68 dust and water resistant. This phone has the 5.8 inch Super Retina OLED display, so it's a really nice looking display. HDR10, pretty bright at 625 nits. It is 1125 by 2436 for the resolution, 458 for the PPI. It's a very nice display. You have Apple's notch up top with Face ID, of course, but the display on here is really nice. So you do have the latest version of iOS, and this phone honestly is going to get updates for years to come. So that's what I really love about these older iPhones, is that they get great support. You have the Apple A12 chip on here, which is still a beast. It's still very fast. You can still game on this phone, no problem. So when I was using it, I had no issues with performance. No SD card support on iPhones, of course. You do have 64 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM. Like I said, this phone was super smooth, so that's nothing you have to worry about. Stereo speakers are on board, really nice quality with this speakers. So you do not have a headphone jack, of course, and you do have NFC with Apple Pay on board. Like I said, Face ID is very fast on here, and the cameras are pretty good on the XS. They've aged really well. So you have a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto. I guess the only thing that sucked about this phone was it did not have an ultra wide. So the depth sensor is great or whatever, but I really would prefer an ultra wide in this phone. But as you can see, the cameras on here are fine. It's still great for video and FaceTime and all that stuff. So it still takes really good photos at this price point. Now you do have kind of a small battery on here, 2658 milliamp. 15 watt fast charging. It is wireless charge compatible. So battery life was okay on here. Again, this is one of those like 6 hour screen on time, maybe 5 if you're a hard user, but overall the XS is definitely a great buy. Next to the Samsung Galaxy Note 9, you can find for $365 right now. It's still a really good buy for anybody that wants a phone with a stylus. This is a really good price point for that. It still has premium design on here, aluminum frame, glass back on here. It's IP68 dust and water resistant as well. So this phone has a Super AMOLED display, 6.4 inches, 1440p, 516 for the PPI. They actually have no notch on the Note 9, which makes it really unique. So if you're anti-notch, you'll really like this display. It's super sharp. Like I said, very high PPI. This phone did get the Android 10 update, One UI 2.5, the Snapdragon 845, and the Adreno 630 combo here. Set 1,000 times. This is still a great chipset for gaming. So if you want to game on this phone, it will definitely be capable of doing that. You do have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 6 gigs of RAM on here. You also have stereo speakers still on board. The headphone jack is still on board. This is a very feature-packed phone. NFC is still on board. You have the iris scanner, physical fingerprint scanner, and it does support the Samsung desktop support experience, which is really nice. So this phone also has pretty good cameras, dual camera setup, 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, 4K video, as well as a 8 megapixel selfie camera with that iris scanner as well. So this phone does have a 4,000 milliamp battery on here, 15 watt fast charging, and supports wireless charging. So like I said, if you want a spec'd out phone, and the deal here is with the stylus, no notch, great display, great cameras at a pretty good price point, this is definitely a phone you should consider. Last on the list is the Galaxy S9. Absolutely love this phone. It's come down in price a lot. I think it's hovering around $250 right now. It's still a really great buy, especially for anybody that wants more of a compact phone. So this has the glass and metal design, premium design, IP68 dust and water resistant. It's a Super AMOLED display. The display is absolutely beautiful on here, especially for the sides. It's kind of got a little bit of curve to it. It's a 5.8 inch display, 1440p, 570 for the PPI. Overall, just a beautiful display. And again, it does not have a notch, so anybody that's anti-notch, you'll really like this phone. You got the Android 10 update out of the box with this guy, Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630 on here as well. So again, can play games just fine. I did notice the Galaxy S9, it heats up more than the other phones on this list. That was one thing that I noticed, but so I would like get a case for it because it does kind of get hot if you do like intense gaming. You do have micro SD support with 64 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM. You have really nice sounding stereo speakers on here as well as NFC. Again, the fingerprint scanner, the physical one is here, the iris scanner. And what you'll be surprised with is that the S9 cameras have aged really well, or should I say camera. It just has one single 12 megapixel standard and 4K video, 8 megapixel selfie. And the shots that I took on it, I was really impressed with it. It took really good photos, a great dynamic range, good detail, color. I really like the photos on the S9. I think they age pretty well. You do have a 3000 milliamp battery with 15 watt fast charging and wireless charging on board. So again, this is a great buy. So that's pretty much it, guys. What do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.